Today's gonna be a fun day because we've got my Bronco mixed in with a brand new product. Eibach Coil Spring Lift Kit is brand new on the market. I don't think really anybody's had a chance to even install these things yet, but we're gonna be doing that in today's video. And we're also going to be doing some tire fitment tests to tell you whether or not you can fit 40s on the Bronco Raptor. Before we throw the truck on the rack, I thought it would be fun to look at it one last time before we get this suspension modification started. So yeah, we've got the RTR grill, the RTR wheels, we've got the Warren front winch, the Factor 55 Ultra Hook and Fair Lead, and then the Baja Designs lights. I've loved those things. Those have been the sleeper so far. I like those way more than I thought I would. And yeah, they turned out really, really nice as well as being nice and bright, but also got the fog pockets. But yeah, I tell you what, let's go ahead and get them to go ahead and pull this thing on the rack and let me show you what we're installing today. The suspension is on and buttoned up. Now we've got to mount and balance the tires as well as get this thing aligned. But the last part is the part I'm a little bit nervous about, and that is going to be seeing if these 40s actually fit, turn, and drive with this Eibach suspension. And here is the finished product. Holy moly, this thing turned out so nice. Now, I haven't had a chance to drive it yet, and I'm gonna show that to you here in just a second, but oh my goodness, I cannot believe this thing actually clears all the way in the front and in the rear. Now, I will say that at full lock, it does rub the upper control arm when I'm hanging on that steering wheel. The reason that it does that is because the offset of my wheels probably should be just a little bit more of a negative offset to kick them out just a little bit, but nothing that's gonna be dangerous to drive the vehicle. The Eibach coils absolutely help this thing achieve the stance. I actually am legitimately surprised that the 40's clear. Now, I will tell you though, if I went off-roading at full articulation right now, I'd probably run into some rubbing issues. We did trim up a little bit on the actual wheel well liner, but I will tell you though, that's got me taken care of for all the around the town driving. But as you can see with the sun going down, that we're running out of daylight. So I opt to just get this thing drivable, and I can get it back to TC Customs here in just a few days to get all of the trimming complete, so that way I can actually take this thing off-road. Another thing I forgot to mention to you, no spare tire. That's not gonna be the way that it's gonna stay. We ran out of daylight, as I mentioned to you. The techs have already gone home for the day, so I'm gonna get that thing mounted and balanced. I've also gotta find a way to get that tire relocated up just a little bit, so that way it clears that rear bumper, that Fab 4's rear bumper. So, oh, I cannot explain to you how excited I am that this thing actually cleared the 40s, because if it didn't, I didn't know what I was gonna do because I've already bought the tires. And here we are 2 days later. I've gotten 200 miles on the odometer since getting the vehicle lifted. I've also even added the speedometer recalibration in that time frame. Here's a couple of things that I'm noticing. As I'm doing 40 miles an hour right now, the vehicle seems very, very similar to stock, with one major exception. When I slam on the brakes, the vehicle doesn't nose down quite nearly as hard as it did in OEM form. I'm guessing that's because the springs have a little bit higher of a spring rate than factory. And if that is the case, Eibach's done a great job of balancing spring rate because it doesn't feel much stiffer. I don't feel like when I go over bumps and I'm gonna get, my head knocked off by the roof. So I think they've done a good job of balancing the increased spring rate as well as just the overall drivability, because it seems very similar to stock in a normal round town driving. And speaking of around town driving, let's do a 0 to 60 run to see what this thing runs 0 to 60 with these 40s. Not that at all. I was actually expecting a significantly reduced 0 to 60 time as compared to a stock Bronco Raptor. But yeah, I don't think that it's really sacrificed that much in form of performance, stopping. I'm actually legitimately surprised. So now let's get this thing on the interstate and kind of go over some of the things that I'm noticing there. As I've got the adaptive cruise control set to 75 miles an hour, a couple of things I've noticed. Obviously the tires are going to be a little bit louder. I fully expected that. Now, number one, I am a little bit hard of hearing as well as being 6'3". But the other thing that I've noticed is the tires aren't really that much louder than the wind noise that I'm getting from the OEM hardtop. So, and I'm always listening to my radio anyways when I'm driving down the road or listening to a podcast. It is absolutely not a problem to still talk to someone on sync system, or with a phone call that is, with these 40s. The other thing I want to point out to you is the overall fuel economy. So it's been about 200 miles since I upgraded the wheels, the tires, and the suspension, but it's only been 50 miles since I've upgraded the speedometer to make sure that it is accurate with exactly how fast I'm going. Why am I telling you that? Because I've only got 50 miles of truly knowing what kind of fuel economy that I'm getting in the vehicle. And the answer is I'm floating around anywhere from 13 to 13.5 miles per gallon on the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and say it's miles per gallon because if I was worried about the fuel economy, I would be driving my Lightning still and not a Bronco Raptor lifted on 40. So I'm really not that terribly concerned about it, but it is something to note. And if you want a kind of a baseline, I was actually averaging about 15.1 over the entire lifetime of the vehicle prior to the lift. So a pretty substantial decrease, but if you are buying a Bronco Raptor, most people are not concerned about the fuel economy. I've had a lot of people ask me, how does this thing drive on the interstate? And I've already talked to you about the tire noise, I've already talked to you about the spring rates and all that kind of stuff, but something that shocked me, as fast as I feel comfortable driving the vehicle, I feel comfortable actually letting my hands off the steering wheel. And yes, it pulls to the one side when I'm on the left-hand lane, and then when I'm in the right-hand lane, it pulls slightly to the right. That's how you know your alignment is perfectly in balance. But my point is that if I were doing this same speed in a solid front axle vehicle, I would not feel comfortable driving this particular speed because you're constantly fighting that steering wheel just to stay in the road. I'm legitimately impressed at the ride quality on these 40s. If you want to see the details of customizing this Bronco with the best armor and the best recovery gear on the planet, click right here to watch that video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.